Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com. If you enjoy our show, don't forget to help us out by subscribing to this podcast, sharing it with a friend, and providing us with a review on iTunes. Check out the show notes below for the link. Thanks, and enjoy the show.
Okay, today we're going to be talking about whether Big Four experience is worth it or not, and it's going to be part of a series where we cover common topics as to why people consider the Big Four experience and whether it's worth it or not. And today we're going to be specifically covering resources at the Big Four and why it makes the Big Four experience worth it. And I have a special guest with me today who's a fellow Big Four accountant and a CPA.
Hi there. So about the resources. Going into Big Four accounting, there are tons of resources that the firm offers. It ranges from training, accounting guides, databases, everything that you could think of, just name it, and they probably have it.
Yeah, there's large amounts of resources at the Big Four. Like there's all kinds of databases, whether it's on the audit side with the FASB codification at your hands and full publications like accounting guides that the firms put out themselves and publish themselves.
And that's actually a really good one because as we go through our day-to-day work in public accounting, we look to guidance. So as we read the textbook language of what is written on how to account for whatever transaction that we're accounting for, or reviewing or understanding the transaction that's taken place, the firms usually offer a more simpler interpretation of those laws, of those guidance, in their internally written guidebook, where they'll explain it'll explain the intent of that guidance. It'll also give you the history and the background of where that came from, how those laws developed. And from there, they'll give you examples of how you treat different transactions. And, it makes it more easily understandable for us. So instead of going directly to CCH or going to
Codification.
Yeah, the codifications. We have our internally created publication that we could go to that's more easily understandable.
Yeah, and also another reason that makes the Big Four experience worth it is because it makes it easier to interact with clients because, clients also have to interpret that same guidance, and being able to take them a publication and offer that to them in a hardcover format, but also soft cover. A lot of times there's a subscription model for them. So it makes it a little bit easier to have client interactions because they say, hey, has your new guide for, mergers and acquisitions or tax or leasing standards come out this year? Then, you just give that to them, and it creates a good relationship. And it's just good to always be able to refer back to that and have, a standard set of guidelines that you can refer to that was actually developed by your firm.
Yes, that's also a really good point. Clients do use the Big Four publications. They refer to it just as much as we do, and they do quite, often request it from us.
And staying along the guidance standpoint, another good reason why the Big Four experience is worth it to me is the national resources too. And the national resources publish those guidelines, but they're also easily accessible to people across the firm. For instance, if you have a specialized issue that comes up, you can just have a conference call and easily access them. When you work in industry or at a smaller firm, you don't necessarily have tens of people or hundreds of people in a national office that look at this guidance all day and develop guidelines for the firm. In that case, you have to do more research yourself and take a risk on yourself in your own practice. In an industry, you're sort of guessing based on a book versus being able to reach out to people at a moment's notice.
Yes. So the national practice is usually one practice where they'll have specialized individuals go. A lot of people also do rotations there. So after you work in public accounting for a few years, you want to go to the national practice, and they'll do a 2-year rotation. So you could move there. Sometimes it's in New York, sometimes it's in Washington, D.C., but they'll usually pay for you to relocate to that area, find a place to live, and you work with these specialized departments for about approximately 2 years. And while working there, you gain a lot of knowledge because it's almost as if it's kind of like a help desk, but it's specialized or very rare instances of when the local office, the local practice is unable to get the clients an answer, or this is just an unusual transaction or something very unusual, or a new frontier that hasn't been discovered yet. They'll call the national practice and consult with them. So when you're in the national practice, you're getting these calls from all over the country with very, very different scenarios or different client issues that now you have to brainstorm with intelligent individuals to come up with a solution.
And also another reason you could think of it as a resource to utilize, but if you actually get to participate in this practice, it could also accelerate and boost your career by many years. As opposed to taking 15 years for you to become partner. If you go to one of these national practices, maybe it only takes you 10 years to become a partner, and that's not a resource, and that's not an ability you're necessarily going to have if you go to industry or a smaller size firm.
Mm-hmm. Other good resources available at Big Four would be the training that Big Four offers. Everyone knows about the national trainings, which are, quite fun. You get to fly out to Orlando or Chicago, wherever the location of the national training is, and you get to meet people from all over the country and do a week-long training with them. Yes, most Big Four, or all the Big Four offers, the national trainings. But in addition to that, they also offer the in-office trainings. Usually during the summer, they do, weekly or bi-weekly internal trainings where your own group comes up with presentations on specific topics, such as certain type of investments and how do you handle the investments, or the background of them, understanding them, learning about them. There's also online courses where if there's something that you've been troubled with that you want to get more familiar with, you could simply go online onto their internal website and internal trainings, and there's tons of
CPEs.
Yeah, the CPEs.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. The Big Four, easily get those, and you take for granted that they get everything CPE approved, and it internally tracks your CPE. But that huge database of courses is good. They have basically an Excel for dummies. They have tax for dummies. They have accounting 101, new lease standards. Like as soon as a new pronouncement comes out, they have continuing professional education, and you're just not going to get that anywhere else because it takes a lot of resources and money to develop those courses. And, it takes a lot of resources to keep it up and store all that data. So most other small accounting firms in industry, they don't maintain that education. You have to go to conferences and you have to get your company to pay for conferences to get that. But at the Big Four, because of their resources, you do get to go to those. You do get to do the online trainings that are easily accessible, the in-office trainings in your local office, wherever you are, and you get to do the national trainings, all because of the extensive resources the Big Four have.
Not only do they have the technical accounting, technical trainings, or the technical tax trainings, they also have soft skill trainings. If you want to learn to do a sales pitch, or internal or interpersonal skills, develop relationships, they actually do offer courses online for those types of skills as well.
Yeah, and I've really seen this in my personal experience lately because the firms are beginning to realize that with automation and technology, it's going to be harder to differentiate ourselves in accountants. It's going to be harder to sell as there's startups that come in and bring accounting solutions. They're going to take that to clients faster than the Big Four is. So the Big Four is getting better at selling. So, and part of it is in-person trainings that teach you sales, but online training that teaches you the best practices of sales. So you can really use the Big Four's resources to strengthen your skills, and these soft skills is managing people, dealing with diversity,
writing documents.
Improving your business writing, sales, seeing your blind spots as far as diversity, like how are you not considering other people as diversity?
Now, other resources, we could talk about like HR resources that Big Four usually offers. The health benefits and some of the 401k benefits and bonuses are much better when you're in industry. But, that's because you're in industry. Whereas public accounting it's an introduction to our job. We're just now getting in, we're probably just graduated. We're just getting started in our career. So we don't need a big package. We're generally very healthy individuals. So they'll offer high deductible insurance plans. So, those might not be the best around. However, working at Big Four offers other benefits that are more relatable to us, something that we would actually participate in, such as a work-life benefit. If we want to work from home, if we want to work a flex schedule, say we're studying for the CPA exam, you're allotted time to take some time off to study for that, things of that nature.
Yeah, there's not really clocking in and clocking out. And so that is like a little added benefit there as far as the benefits go. But I was thinking more of, just you have HR resources to go to. I guess it may not be the employee benefits part of it, but like HR resources as far as sitting down and talking with somebody, especially at the Big Four firms, it's a little bit easier than an industry or at a smaller accounting firm, because I know in smaller companies or smaller accounting firms, they don't have really big established HR departments, and it's not what you typically think of an HR department. The person's there just to fill out forms, and they're not really there if you have an HR issue. Where at the Big Four, and especially the larger Big Four, you can talk one-on-one with the HR as far as enrolling in benefits, but also staffing problems and things like that. Because you have to think of the Big Four, most of them, other than really KPMG, employ more than 200,000 employees. So they become really good with dealing with lots of people, and that's their focus. So you really take that for granted when you work for one of the Big Four, and I view that as still part of the resources and part of a benefit of Big Four experience, is because they are people focused, and you don't really notice that until you leave.
Yes. Now, some of the three biggest benefits I experienced working at Big Four were, one, college assistance. They did pay for my master's degree, and I know if you're hired in the audit practice for Ernst & Young, they will help pay for your college.
Yeah, and PwC then, as well.
Yeah, PwC, I believe it doesn't matter which line of practice that you're in.
It's just until, it's like $1,000 a year until you make manager.
It's $10,000 that they pay. Oh no, they came up with a new program. You're right. No, that's to help pay off your student loans.
Yeah.
So that's another benefit.
You're talking
as well.
The tuition one.
Yeah, but the tuition one, that's the one that I participated in, because the tuition one was they'll pay $10,000 a year for your education before you even start working at the firm. And then now I know various firms offer various programs to pay off any student loans that you have. They'll help you each year pay off an amount on your student loans. So that was a very, very big one, big resource that the big firms were able to do for me. Another one was to be able to move. I relocated to New York City, and the firm really helped me with that. They helped me with the relocation package. They moved all of my personal belongings. I stayed in a hotel right in Times Square for 3 months, and then they gave me an apartment rent-free in the middle of Manhattan for over a year. That really, really came in handy, and I really appreciate the firm for doing that. Other resources that I love being a part of was getting funding to do work outside of the firm. I was involved in a lot of different national organizations, a lot of diverse organizations, a lot of accounting organizations, and they will have their annual conference. And various organizations had various conferences all over different parts of the country, and the firms will actually help pay for that. They will sponsor you to go to those. So I thought that was a really great resource that is open to a lot of people that work at the Big Four. These benefits are available to every single person in the Big Four. It's just no one asks for them. No one pushes these opportunities. You do have to be very active and very vocal to get those types of benefits, because those are not the standard benefits that, it's a checklist that everyone goes through. These are other benefits that are in the handbook that no one's really aware of until you bring it to their attention.
Yeah, so this is part one of our Big Four Experience series. And it's one that not everybody knows about, just because if you're a young person, you haven't necessarily dealt with companies other than the Big Four, and you're not aware of all the resources out there. But the Big Four, because of the amount of people and the amount of money they make, have a lot of resources that you can take advantage of. So as far as, is the Big Four experience worth it? When it comes to resources, it is.
I definitely agree. 100% it is.
This is part one of our Big Four Experience series, where we will be exploring whether or not the Big Four experience is worth it by looking at various factors such as resources, salary, prestige, and experience. So if you want to hear the other episodes, check out our podcast on iTunes and also go to our YouTube channel, as we will be creating a playlist specifically for this series. Check out the show notes for more details and relevant links.
We appreciate your help in growing this podcast so we can continue to bring you the best Big Four content possible. You could help us out by providing a review on iTunes, sending us an email with your comments, and don't forget to share with your friends. There's a link below in the show notes. That's our show for today. Thanks for listening and have a great day.